Thank you so much for watching this episode of She Can. Today I am joined by the incredible Lisa Marshall, also known as The Widow Diaries, also known as Scottish Influencer of the Year, which is very new for you.
Very new.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here and meet you.
It's so lovely to meet you. I feel like I know you because I followed you now on Instagram for quite a long time. I think the best place to start is just sharing a little bit about your story, first of all, and what happened those few years ago.
Yeah, of course. So it was over 3 years ago now. I was just a normal person living a normal life. I had a husband, 3 kids. I was on maternity leave, about to go back to work, and I lost my husband to suicide. So it still feels crazy saying that out loud. Like, this has actually happened. I don't think it ever really sink in that it is in my life, but that's what happened. It was completely out of the blue. There was no mental health struggles I was aware of. There was no medication, doctor's appointment. There was just nothing that I was aware of that Alan was struggling in any way, shape or form. And I just didn't think things like that would ever happen to us. I used to think people that struggle that are affected by suicide, they've had a long life of trauma, really bad things happen to them, and previous attempts, mental health struggles, and you just don't think it's ever going to happen to you. So it happened to me, and I was in a really, really dark place. And 3 years on, I now share my journey on social media, and I've connected with so many people that have been through the exact same thing. It's really scary how common it is because I wasn't affected by suicide before. But just share this is how we're kind of rebuilding our life now to this day.
Wow. And you help so many people every day on your social media. Going back to what happened with Alan that day, and there was no note, there was no clue that it was going to happen. And I know that that is the case for a lot of people who die by suicide, and you were left alone with 3 children.
Yeah.
It's not something that ever is on your bingo card, is it? It's not something that you think is ever going to happen to you.
No.
Talk me through the process of the grief that you've been through since then. I know that grief is something that doesn't disappear.
Yeah.
And I've heard it described like a ball. It bounces around.
Yeah.
And sometimes it finds somewhere to land.
Yeah.
3 years is actually not that long ago.
I don't think it is either. Yeah.
It's still quite a new situation.
Yeah.
So how has the process gone for you over the last few years from the moment it happened to now being able to talk openly about it and discuss such a harrowing event in your life?
Yeah. So at the time, you're just in an absolute state of shock. I've never felt shock like that in my life. You're in fight or flight and just completely panic survival mode. It's really, really bad. And you're feeling all the emotions you can possibly think of. You're angry, obviously. You're so sad. You feel guilty that I never managed to see anything wrong or help. You feel confused to why this happened, and you just feel that life is just so unfair. Why this had to happen to my kids as well. And your feelings 1 minute, your feelings are changing minute by minute as well. 1 minute you could be really, really upset, and then the next you're okay. It just is up and down constantly, like a yo-yo almost.
Yeah.
And then I'd say over the next few weeks and months, things start to level out, and I just became completely numb. And I think that's obviously, looking back, it's a protective mechanism. So you think that you're doing okay, you're functioning, you're getting the kids to school, you seem to be living a normal life. People just looking at you outside wouldn't know what you've been through. But then the numbness, I just remember that I was very, very quite chilled and calm, especially with my kids. I would never really lose it with them if they're misbehaving. But it's not a good place to be being numb, because then you can't feel pure joy again.
Yeah,
that's it as
everything.
well. Yeah. And then over time, I think as well at that point as well, being numb, I never spoke about suicide. I never spoke about what happened. I really just didn't want to be associated with being a widow or suicide. So I had never really met anybody that was either a widow or affected by suicide. And then over time, the numbness, it starts to kind of lessen, and your feelings start to come back. They do, definitely. And it can be quite hard, because it can be a slight little thing that really, really upsets you. So I think that's with grief and emotions, they absolutely change over time. And that's it, the way you described the ball. I think with grief, it doesn't really leave. People say that time heals, but what I think happens is your life almost just evolves around it in a bigger way. But you always carry the grief, and even like 3 years on, it can be like a slight little thing that just takes you straight back to that moment. It could be like a smell or just something you see, like Alma like that, or like a song. And then next week as well, it would have been our 10-year anniversary. And so what I'm finding now is there's a lot of people that got married the same time that we did, and you remember from like school or university, you always remember the brides that were kind of close to you being a bride, and you're seeing them like celebrating, going on holidays together, and you're just kind of like, oh, that like should have been like me as well. So yeah, it evolves, but it's one of those things that so many people carry. And until Alan died, I had only lost my grandparents. I had never experienced grief like this, like losing your partner or anybody, like, you know, in your immediate family. Yeah.
There are so many layers to what you've been through, Lisa. You know, losing your husband is one thing.
Yep.
It's horrific. The fact that your husband died, leaving you as a single mother to 3 children. But on top of that is the fact that it was suicide.
Yes.
So you mentioned the anger and then the guilt and so many different layers. Have you had to do a lot of work to acknowledge all those emotions throughout the years? Have you had to do a lot of counselling and therapy and things?
Yeah, I did. And I think it's almost toxic, a suicide loss, because you love the person so much, but you almost end up hating them for what they've done and for leaving as well. And not so much more for me, but the effect like on my children not having a dad. So it's very, very like toxic, the grief almost, as well as suicide loss. And I think that's why so many people, like so many families, they just kind of like sweep it under the carpet. They don't want to talk about it, and they just want to try and like move on without mentioning their loved one again almost. But then that doesn't really help people that are like still here and that are struggling like as well. So I done counselling. The NHS don't recommend you doing counselling for 6 months. So, you know, you go to the doctors and they're just offering you medication. And like, I was too scared to take anything because I had the 3 kids in the house. I was like, what if I take this and it makes me like drowsy, getting into school and things like that. So I got counselling maybe 6 months after. And even that, the reason for that, they said it's because you haven't really processed a loss until that kind of time had passed. And then NHS, you're on waiting lists for a really long time. So people that are struggling, but also those after a loss, they're struggling to access services. There's obviously big waiting times. And then I went private and I met a counsellor, Linda, who my friend recommended, and she was brilliant. She was so, so good. So I seen her probably for about a year and a half. It went from weekly to 2 weekly to monthly. And then I tried EMDR. You know, people rave about EMDR. That's like the eye movement. So you're kind of looking, like using both sides of your brain. I've tried that as well, but I'd done 5 sessions and I don't think it really worked on me. And she spoke to a psychologist and says that they think that I was just maybe just too dissociated from what happened, and they almost don't want to like push the grief and push the trauma. So I've tried a lot, but this year I actually haven't done any counselling. And I find that even just like talking to a friend, voice noting somebody, just getting all your feelings out there, as long as you're talking to somebody, I think it is like effective as well. And obviously I still attend my suicide bereavement group. That's like a therapy in itself, a place called Here. You're in a group, it's probably set up like a support, and everyone's talking about their experience, how they're feeling. That's like a really good source of like therapy as well. But I would recommend counselling and therapy to absolutely anybody, even if you don't think you need it, because I didn't think I needed it. I thought I was doing okay, but when you actually get into it and you're, you know, all the layers, as you say, of the suicide loss, there's so much to unpack.
Absolutely. And particularly because you've undertaken that horrific loss, but then it's all down to you. You're the one responsible for those 3 kids, so you have to pull your trousers up and go on with it. Because you know it's just part of being a mother. And that responsibility is now on your shoulders. I've seen you doing a lot of petitioning about, you know, help available to widows, particularly financially. Tell me more about that.
There isn't any financial help available. I think people will be quite shocked. When Alan died, obviously it was sudden, so I didn't know what I'd be entitled to. But there's a bereavement support payment, and I think you get a lump sum at the start. So I think maybe I got £3,500, so all widows get that, and it depends if you've got children or not. And then, but that money, you're using that to pay your mortgage, or using that to help with the funeral, and then you got £350 for 18 months, and then it stops. But I didn't realise it actually in 2017, it was the Tory government, they actually overturned that support, because they used to get it £350 until your youngest child turned 18. So they actually ruled and said they didn't want that anymore. And I just felt, I was like, these MPs, and if they haven't went through that, if any of them are widow, they would be fighting to have that in place. But unless it happens to you, people just don't care. They don't care. They're trying to cut costs at any corner. So I do think I am one of the luckier widows, and I don't want to plead poverty. Like, we did have things in place, so like financially we're doing okay. But widows message me daily saying like how bad it is, how they're forced back to work full time, and they're not mentally ready. They've had to sell their house, move back in with parents, go in the homeless, and try and get a council house, which is a long process as well. The government's response is, that's what universal credit's there for. But a lot of widows, if you do get like any life insurance payouts, you want to put money aside for children for the future. So you can't have more than £16,000, I think, to get universal credit. So there's not any support at all compared to other countries. Ireland widows get about maybe £800 a month,
Right.
and that's like until their kids turn 18. The UK isn't like that at all. And as well, I actually know a widow. She was widowed twice. So 10 years ago, her husband died of cancer, and then she recently lost her partner to suicide. And when she told me that, I was like, oh my goodness, that's just how much trauma can somebody go through.
Wow.
But at 10 years ago, things were different as well. They used to get your husband or wife's state pension as well. So you would get that for your children as well to have
Okay.
as well. So it's all been done away with. And there's a debate happening the 6th of June outside London. You've got 35,000 signatures, but I just don't know if anything's going to change, because the government, I mean, there's just so many issues right now, isn't there, in the world right now, definitely.
There are.
Yeah.
However, the fact that you have built the platform
Yeah.
that you have built,
Yeah.
you've just been crowned Scottish Influencer of the Year in your category. It's unbelievable the
Yeah.
awareness that you're raising. And
Yeah.
this is something that I feel so fortunate that I haven't been through what you've been through. So I didn't have a lot of this on my radar.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of women will be the same, because you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what isn't available for you.
Yeah.
God forbid you ever need it, until someone like you is brave enough to use their voice and talk about it and advocate for women in your position. So firstly, well done for what you're doing, because it's not easy. I would imagine to talk about your loss so openly, but you've been a source of help for so many women and men, I would imagine, who have lost their spouse over the years, because until social media and Instagram influencers and that became part of the public domain, it was a very quiet thing.
Yeah.
Being a widow, first of all,
Yeah.
on top of that, suffering suicide. I mean, both of those layered, there's stigma and there's shame around both of those elements.
Absolutely.
And you're unlocking that and bringing it into the public domain to let people see that, no, this is actually something that we all have to be very aware of.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's it. If I have any platform at all, it's really to help others as well, and campaign to get as much help as possible for widows and support for widows as well. And I get a lot of messages from people who have a friend that's a widow, and they'll follow me to try and like find out how they can help their friend and things, and they might not want to push my account on their friend. I know it can be so triggering, but that's it as well. There's just so many people that feel that they don't have a voice, and they don't. So if any kind of way or shape or form I can help, then no, I'm happy to do it. And I think that's one of the positives with social media, is that you do connect with people all over the world that have had the same loss and the same grief, and you just, even like me, like I feel so much less alone sharing, because there's so many people that are just I've connected with that are in the exact same position, and you realise I'm not the only person this has happened to. There's lots of us, and not that you feel normal, but you just feel more kind of connected with the world in a way.
You're less alone.
Yep, definitely, absolutely.
And you mentioned, sometimes people would recommend your account to their friend, or it helps them cope with how to deal with their friend who's going through that kind of thing. What would you say to someone listening who maybe hasn't been through what you've been through, but we know someone who's suffering from grief, they've lost a partner, or they've been affected by suicide? I personally have definitely felt like I just don't know what to say to them.
Yeah.
I just don't know where to start. And I know that it's a common reaction to just avoid the person,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is probably the worst thing you can ever do.
Yeah.
Or the toxic positivity element of, well, at least it wasn't this.
At
You
least-
lost one arm, at least you didn't lose both.
Anything with at least, you should just not say it. Definitely.
Just stop.
Yeah. Just think about it and say, no, I'm not going to say that. At least, yeah, definitely.
Is that common? Do people say that a lot?
Yeah, it's a shame because I do understand people just don't know what to say. But do you know what I think as well? You're better saying something than nothing. And even if you do hit it with the at least, then they're saying something, they're trying, because it would, you know, I see people, they've like turned their back in the school playground, they cross the street to avoid you. Everybody's had it. And you know, like the thing is grief. Everybody's going to go through grief in their life as well. But I think there's, you know, there's certain types of grief. And I think a suicide loss is one. People just don't know what to say. They don't, because it is just so shocking. The other kind of loss that actually really connects people that have been through it around the same time. I knew a woman who sadly had a stillborn. And again, it's like people just don't know what to say because it's just so sad and tragic. And we actually connected quite a lot over that. And it's just like feeling alone. So if anybody that's kind of supporting anybody going through it, I think it matters more checking in and still being there like a year, a 2 year, 3 year, 5 year down the line. At the very start, around the funeral, everybody's there. But then after the funeral, everyone goes back to their normal lives. And I do think that comes from just like watching TV and film. Like you'll see somebody die in a TV show, the next episode, everyone's back to normal again. I think it just comes from that, and people are just like, wrapped up in their own lives. Like, so yeah, I think the main thing is still keep checking in, because sometimes as well, like the grief and the hard times, they can come like years after the loss as well. Definitely, they might not have processed it at the time, but just being there, I don't need to have the right words, just sitting with them and actually kind of offering practical help as well, like offering to meet up, and even if they don't feel like it, just keep asking as well and keep checking in, letting them know you think about it. But even like I still struggle, like one of my friends lost her dad recently and I'm like, right, how can I help, what can I say? It's really difficult, but I know that the time that she'll probably feel the loneliness is months after the funeral. Absolutely. Yeah.
And that goes back to what you said about the NHS. They won't actually start counselling until 6 months later. So for that first 6 months, everything's just completely numb and not fully processed. But that's probably the time where people are turning up at your door and the flowers are arriving and people won't spend time with you, but you're not ready at that point. So further down the line is even more important.
Yeah, the years like following rebuilding. I think to be there as well, just on that journey, it's really special. And I'm lucky, like I had so many like amazing friends from like school, from university, friends that I've worked with, and like I've still got friends, and I've also made friends along the way as well. So friends that have come into your life after the loss as well, because that happens from like widows or my suicide bereavement group. So yeah, I think friendship has been just so important, and I don't think I appreciated like how amazing friends I had until what happened with Alan, because I was just wrapped up in being a wife and a mum. I was just so busy with the kids that I never probably made as much time as I should have for my friends. But now like I really value my friendships. I'm just so lucky to have them. Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
it's beautiful. Friendships are so important.
Absolutely.
As are all relationships, but going back to that, you know, your friendships and the conversations and those conversations that we have with people in our lives, how would you say that that's been impacted by what happened with Alan for you? Do you feel like you are so conscious of having conversations that ask people, you know, in-depth questions? You were a mum of 3 children. Your youngest daughter was it 10 months when Alan died?
Yeah.
You're in the thick of it.
Yeah.
Life is so busy. It's hard enough to have a shower in those stages.
Yeah, absolutely.
Never mind, you don't have all those conversations with people in your lives.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone who's listening to this thinking, what more can I do in my relationship? How can I help my partner if they have anything that they want to process? Where do you even start with that?
Probably by like helping with the load, especially if it's like a partner as well, just stepping up and helping and making sure that they have like time for themselves as well, just to connect with friends or even going to like a fitness class or just like a walk by themselves just to process things as well, because I think being a mum as well, you're so busy with the kids that you don't really get a lot of time to even think. And I think for me that was a blessing, because you just have to keep going, there's no choice but to keep going and get on with it. But then you do have to really like spend time, get comfortable by yourself and just process everything as well. But people like just showing up, offering practical help, offering to, you know, help with the washing. My friends offered tying the uniforms, anything like that, like offering to clean my house. But like I was too like proud. I was like, no, I don't want to help, I could do it myself. And I was really lucky. My mum moved in with me as well at the start, and she still helps me so much now as well. So I'm just really lucky, because there'll be people out there that don't have a support network after that. They don't have a mum that's like a rock to them. And I really, really feel for them, definitely.
I love it when my mum arrives at my house and just starts unloading the dishwasher.
I
She doesn't
know.
say, would you like some help? Because
Yeah.
of course you're going to say no. She just does it.
I know.
Get in and get stuck in.
Yeah.
And that's what you can do as a friend as well, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And just don't stop checking in. And even if you think, oh, they're doing fine, like she's out, she's fine, like there's a good chance they're not. They're just, you know, just trying to survive, definitely. Yeah.
So with suicide awareness, what do we need to know in order to help those around us? Because it's not always obvious. You said at the start that you always had this view that someone who dies by suicide, they've gone through a lifetime of trauma, they've really had hardship in their life and they just couldn't take any more. But that wasn't the case with Alan. He was a happy-go-lucky guy, a brilliant family, brilliant wife, and it just came from nowhere. How can you educate us to help prevent this, or someone listening who is in that position? What can we say to them?
I think the main thing is that suicide doesn't discriminate. Everybody I know that has a family member that's taken their own life, they're all from different walks of life, different gender, ages. They've all went different things as well. So it can happen to anybody. And I think it starts with mental health education as well. And I never was taught mental health in school or even university, nothing at all. So I think it really starts with education in schools. And the main thing is, especially with men, is that it's okay to talk. Alan was a massive football fan and went into football, and I just think it's such like a Glasgow thing that guys just don't really show much emotion. They don't talk the same way that we do. Or if they do talk, it's maybe more surface level, just about the football and things as well. So I think that the main thing is it can happen to anybody, and just to make sure that you're always like checking in. But if you do have any concerns, like a gut feeling, to like follow up on it, make them know that you're there for support, there is support available, and there's professionals that are deal with this every single day, and they're not a burden. They can get help. That's the main thing. Just don't be ashamed to ask for help, because everybody would want to help you if you told them how low you were feeling. And sometimes you can have those thoughts and feelings about suicide and you don't know why, you don't know where they're coming from, and it's just important to like at least tell somebody you're struggling. You don't have to explain why. But like one of the good sayings I've heard someone say is they would rather help you than be standing at your funeral, because that is the reality of it, definitely. Yeah.
I'd rather help you than be standing at your funeral.
Absolutely.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Of course. And it's something that is far too common now. And even grief, we're not taught how to deal with grief.
No.
Of course, it happens to us all. It's part of the life cycle. We're born, we will die at one point, but we're not taught how to deal with grief ourselves. We're not taught how to help other people around us grieve. And that's why what you're doing is so important.
Thank you.
So at what point in your journey did you think, right, I have to start talking about this? I'm going to take this and start sharing it on social media.
Yeah, I think it came from going to my suicide bereavement group, a place called Tears. So I went to them the first time in November, I think 2024. And then at that point, I hadn't said anything on my personal social media about what happened to Alan. I never shared anything. I just shared the funeral details and that was it. And then about April time, I done the kilt walk. So this was last year. And then I think my target was maybe like £500, and then I couldn't believe the way people donated. It went to like maybe like over £11,000. Wow. And I just couldn't believe it. But I realised like how much support like I had and for Alan as well. And it's not just about like Alan. I think people probably just felt like they maybe had struggles in their life. They maybe lost somebody to suicide, and I think it was just like so well taken because of that. And then I think like that kind of gave me the confidence to maybe actually share on social media, because I think like the content you consume, I was always looking for like a widow in my position just that I could relate to. And it's difficult. I actually don't, I do relate obviously, but at the time like I didn't relate to widows that had maybe lost someone to cancer. They maybe share their journey because it's just such a different
It's
kind of
different,
loss. It is, and I would go to the widow groups and I just would feel like I don't belong here. It's really, really difficult. So if you feel like you don't belong anywhere, then you just have to make yourself belong somewhere. So setting up social media, and then I just like couldn't believe like how many people were in the same situation as me, and some of them have set up accounts, and like even now like, you know, I'll talk to them like kind of every now and then like how we're all getting on and things, definitely. But I think it basically came from like not being able to talk about it for almost 2 years, because I set it up, you know, almost 2 years in. But I think that time was really important because people have got very strong opinions about suicide. So you have to deal with that, and you have to deal with negative comments. And I think, you know, setting up an account just after Alan died, like I wouldn't be able to cope with the kind of things that people say about like suicide then. But now I'm just like, if I get a bad comment, I'm like, well, that might push this video out further to help somebody that needs to see it. So it really doesn't bother me. So I think the timing of it, the 2 years, is what I needed to just, you know, like almost try and process it. And but I don't think I really maybe started processing it probably until I started talking about it on social media. So I feel it's been really helpful and like almost cathartic to me as well, definitely.
You became the voice that you were looking for in your time of need, and you've been that voice for so many people. It's not easy to deal with all of those comments and opinions when it comes to suicide. I've watched one of your reels, and you had screenshots of all these different comments of people saying, oh, I could see it in his eyes. That's so hard for you to listen to.
Because I used to go back to all the pictures and look through them myself, like when he died, and I was like, is there a change here? Is there a time that he looked like he was struggling? And I genuinely couldn't see it. Alan hated getting his picture taken. He would always be like, oh, like posing, like, for God's sake. And he just hated, he was just like, oh, just like typical guy, didn't like getting his picture taken. And I think as well, like, hindsight's a great thing. So looking back at pictures, I also think the main thing is people don't want to believe that this could happen. They want to think that they would see it if it was their loved one struggling. So I think that's why it did get so many comments, or you can see at that point. But all those comments, like I think that video maybe got 8 million views. There's no doubt that would have actually got those figures unless people were commenting those opinions. So you do appreciate it in a way to kind of push it out and things, definitely.
So you're able to take that, which is so hard to listen to, so hard to hear, so hard to take that opinion on board and think this is getting the message out further.
Yeah, it is, absolutely, it is, definitely. And I think I made a decision in TikTok as well. So there's a creator fund on TikTok, and then I think when you get 10,000 followers, you get into it and you start monetizing your content. But then I noticed there was a video, it got maybe like 100,000 views on Instagram. It was a suicide awareness, and it didn't get as many on TikTok, maybe get 5,000 views. And I was like, I wonder if this has got to do with the creator fund, because people will say, oh, like my views have dropped being in this creator fund, but you don't really want to say it in case it could just be the content you're putting out. So then I actually ended up leaving it after that, because I was like, you know what, if there's a chance that my content could get pushed out further, not being this fund, then I'll take it. And then it has, and those a couple of videos did go viral. So that came like after, like taking the monetization away, because when you think about it, there's TikTok aren't going to pay everybody for making videos, so there's only a certain amount of money people get. So by taking the money aspect away of it, and I think I prefer it that way as well, because I never started up to make money. So by taking out any kind of money at all, you're just posting because you want to, and it's like a hobby. It's not like a job. And then as well, it means that as well, one day if I'm like, I don't want to post anymore, I can just walk away from it, and I need to do this for paying bills. I need that. I rely on it, definitely.
How do you feel about that? You mentioned, you know, maybe one day I'll want to walk away from it. Your handle is the Widow Diaries. So do you feel like that's become part of your identity?
Yeah, this is it as well, because I think eventually you might not, you're always a widow, but your life will eventually move on as well. And the main thing as well for me is, if my son, he's going into primary 6 after summer, by the time he's in high school, every single person in his life in school is going to have a phone, and they'll be able to watch me and watch videos, watch about his life. And I'm kind of just like, he might not want to tell people his wee story. Kind of talk about him, honestly. So like, I think eventually like it will probably like matter that the kids have privacy
Uh-huh.
and like we just kind of have a private life again. But I want to do as much as I can until I get to that point, or it could just change that I just don't post about my kids at all in the future. But I think I do worry about my kids and privacy and like their lives and like how this might affect them in the future as well. Definitely.
Yeah. It's hard because you're not
Yeah.
only having to deal with your own processing of grief, you've got 3 little people that you're responsible for, that you want to make sure that they process their emotions and you're doing the best thing by them. And you have done such a good job. You mentioned the kilt walk, and I saw that your little boy walked the kilt walk with you, and he lost his shoes in the mud.
This is the kind of luck that I have in my life, honestly. I could not believe it. Like,
but he
4
kept
months
going.
ago, he kept going, and Anton gave my go carriage in a place called Tier, but he wanted to walk it. He wanted to walk, honestly. So I was just so proud of him, and I think that just shows like the resilience that children have. They really do. And obviously, like, they miss their dad terribly, but they don't feel sorry for themselves for losing their dad, and they don't feel like any less by not having a dad. Obviously, I think they'll always feel as a missing part, but they really just do get on with it. And I think there's just so much we could learn from children as well, the way. But I also hate when people say, oh, kids are so resilient, because they shouldn't have went through that, obviously. And kids, they go through things they shouldn't have to go through. It's just the way that they cope and adapt. But yeah, he done it so well. I couldn't believe it. So next year when he does it, I'll be taking a spare pair of shoes to the finish, definitely.
What a wee trooper.
I know. I couldn't believe it. I was honestly couldn't believe it. And then people said, oh, I seen those shoes sitting at the side of the grass.
So how far did he walk with no shoes on?
4 miles. And you can imagine in Glasgow, you're worried about glass and stuff as well, like on the paths as well. I couldn't believe it. A few people gave us socks, and somebody in a place called Tierchak, he gave us these socks that were like really special padded socks, so that really helped. But I just couldn't believe it, honestly. And I felt his feet the next day thinking they were going to be like sandpaper. They were fine. It was like a baby, so like I was like, he was fine, totally fine.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not many adults would do that.
No, I couldn't do it, honestly. I'd have to stop and wait for a new pair of shoes.
Next hour delivery, please. Get me some
Absolutely.
shoes. So let's talk a little bit more about the kids. I know that you have 2 boys, and one is neurotypical.
Yes.
And one is neurodivergent.
Yeah.
And you actually have heard you say that you think Alan might have been autistic.
Yeah, definitely. I think Henry, my son, when he was younger, people would just be like, oh, he's so like his dad, like doing things that weren't typical. Like he would only wear certain clothes, he would be really upset quite easily at things, and at a baby group as well, like he would just be away doing his own thing rather than actually join in with the class. And because he was my first child as well, I just thought that was normal as well.
You don't know any different.
You don't know any different at all. And as well, like when he was 3, he could tell you every single plane in the sky. Like he had to have obsessions. So his was planes and all the airlines, and he would look at the sky and be like, that's EasyJet, British Airways, Ryanair, Wizz Air. And he was only 3, and I thought this was normal, but I don't think it is when a 3-year-old. But yeah, so looking back, he is very, very similar to his dad. But his dad, Alan, he was just, again, like so smart, and he could remember numbers and Rangers games, like who was playing, what the score was from years ago. And I was just like, what? It's like a superpower almost. But again, I just thought this was normal because we were together when I was 19. I didn't really think anything of it. Definitely. So yeah, seeing my children now obviously kind of been going through the process, I'm like, oh, it's pretty obvious that Alan was autistic as well, but not at the time. And he has a brother who's non-verbal autistic as well. Yeah, so I do think there's a big genetic link, absolutely. The diagnosis is a 4-year wait for a child now to get diagnosed with autism. So
4-year wait?
4-year wait, yeah. He was referred primary 2, like really similar to when his dad died actually.
Right.
And you know, I feel sad that I'll never got to see like who his kids were as well in a way as well, definitely. But he's on the waiting list, and the school are quite happy as long as it's diagnosed before high school, and it is like high function autism, so it's like academically they'll be fine, but it's socially that, you know, and I do think a lot of kids can mask to fit in as well. And I always remember when he was like primary 1, I seen him like trying to just copy boys like to play with, and they were like, why are you copying me? And he was obviously trying to fit in, and I just didn't realise then that like, oh, that's because like he's autistic. So yeah, I think as well, I do think I'm very soft parenting. Alan was definitely the strict one, so I do worry that I'm too soft, but I think just letting them be who they are and not making them do things they don't want to do, very fair, that's it. But it's hard to make sure each of them have enough attention as well, and like their needs are all met, definitely.
That's another
level.
level, another layer
Yeah.
of your experience is being a single mother
Yeah.
to 3 children,
Yeah.
one who's autistic,
Yeah.
alongside everything else.
Yeah, and my daughter as well. So I think too that I think it just shows the genetic link.
Do
So
you think your daughter's autistic as well?
when her dad died, I felt that she just regressed all her skills almost.
Right.
So she's got a big speech delay, but she's going through speech and language again, took months to access. And I think as well I was probably in denial a little bit because I was like, I cannot deal if anything's not the norm here by myself being a single mum. So I think that she's on the spectrum as well, but I think she'll get a diagnosis quicker because she's going through the speech and language kind of like pathway as well. So
okay.
she's delayed, but again, very, very clever, very switched on. And I have friends that have got non-verbal children, friends that have got genetic conditions with their children. So I do like feel like still so blessed and so lucky, and just like that's just them and that's it, and that's how they feel as well. Definitely. Yeah.
Do you think everything that you've been through has really magnified that, your gratitude for what you do have?
Yeah, I think that's really important. That's something I learned from going to my bereavement group as well. You have to have gratitude, and I think even when your life seems like it's so bad, there's always things that you can be grateful for. And even though obviously I've lost my husband, I've still got my 3 children, and I'm so lucky to be a mum. I've got friends that struggle with their fertility, trying to have babies for years, and I never ever take it for granted. And I think that it's not the life I thought I'd have, that kind of picture perfect happy family, but I'm so lucky to be a mum, and my kids are healthy, and you know we still have like nice days out, and I've got a family and friends about me. So I think I just say to anybody struggling that actually thinking about all the things you've been grateful for, it can just boost your mood and feel positive and things as well. But it is really hard at a time when you do go through something really bad to have that, but that's definitely something that's helped me. Even just like waking up and then listing things you're grateful for, it really helps enormously.
I can only imagine how hard that is to do when you're going through what you've been through, to think about gratitude.
Yeah.
But I suppose there's always, you've got air in your lungs, and there's something if you look hard enough, but it's not an easy thing to do.
No.
At all.
No.
And I've heard you say that you believe that everything happens for a reason. And I know that you're spiritual, and if you think about the law of attraction, and what we put out there is what we get back, and if everything happens for a reason, how can you marry that with everything that you've been through? That's the strength that takes to have that mindset is, to me, almost unfathomable.
Yeah, some people, especially going through a suicide loss, they'll say everything doesn't happen for a reason, and things like that happen, that'll kind of like abandon that like mindset.
Understandably.
Absolutely, and I can imagine that. And I think for me, like Alan's death had no meaning, like it was meaningless, and with the suicide, but I do think you have to find meaning after the death and use it to, learn from it and try and like rebuild as well. I just think as well, people that I've spoken to like online or I've met in person, if they have had suicide attempts and they're still here, and I do find it hard speaking to people that have had attempts because I always think, oh, Alan's not here, but they've got help, they're still here, why could Alan not get help like they did? But like sometimes they'll say that it was like their child phoning them or somebody stopped them. In Alan's case, like it was really just like he went to the station and that was it. It was a few seconds. There was no like red light to stop him. There was nobody bumped into that would have been like, oh, how you doing? Just like bumped into somebody, It was almost like it was just meant to happen. And I usually have a cleaner that comes every second Wednesday, and actually because I wasn't well, I cancelled her for the following day, and I have never ever cancelled her before in my life. I was ill, my mum was there to help me, and I was just like, the way things like that, I'm just like, it's almost like it was in a way a terrible way. It was almost like written and what it was meant to be, and it's really hard to think about that, but it also brings peace that like you can find happiness again in your life as well. You can, and like some like positives from the worst trauma and pain in your life. And I think like helping other people is like a big part of that as well, and sharing, definitely.
Yeah. I feel like as you're speaking, I can see those glimmers of, you're holding both at once.
Yes, that's it.
You're able to experience the happiness and the joy and the love of raising these 3 gorgeous kids, and stepping into that era of being a single mum for them, and that's your life.
Yeah.
along with carrying what you're carrying.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's grief, like grief and joy, they exist at the same time. And you can have a really nice thing happen, but then obviously you have that wee, oh, I wish they were there to see that as well. And that'll be the rest of my life. And as the kids get older as well, each birthday party, each achievement is like, oh, I wish their dad was here to see that. And my son just got back into playing football as well at the team that he was meant to coach at. So even things like that is amazing, but it's obviously emotional as well. But I think that is grief. You have to just learn to carry both at the same time, because if you just carry the sad parts and the grief, then that'll consume you. But if you can just let a little bit of joy in, it doesn't need to be a massive bit of joy. And I tell people that, like, you're not going to get this big, like, life change moment, like, that's it, I'm fine now.
Happy again.
That's it, happy again. That's it,
Uh-huh.
I'll fix. It's never going to happen. But there will be little glimmers that come into your life, and you just have to like hold on to them. And it's just the little things that I appreciate now, definitely, rather than the big things that you maybe chased before, definitely.
Yeah. And that's a really good lesson, isn't it,
Yeah.
in life in general, even out with grief, that two emotions can coexist
Yes,
at the same time. That
absolutely.
sadness for people who aren't here, along with the happiness of what's to come.
Yeah, and the thing is, everybody that has been lost, they would want their loved ones to be happy. They wouldn't want you sitting around being really sad and upset. So I think that as well. And Alan, he was just such like a fun, loving person, and he was just full of like joy, always made everybody laugh. So to try and get that essence of him as well, and like me in the kid's life again, it is hard, because he was 100% the fun parent. I was probably the strict one, but trying to get that again and just enjoy life as well, like that's the best way that you can do. And I think that really comes from just like being present and being with my kids. That's it, definitely. Yeah,
You have to step up and be the
Yeah.
Joker now, Lisa.
Yes, I know.
So tell me about what's to come. You're going back to work soon.
Yes.
As a dentist.
Yes, I am.
Now, dentistry has a high suicide
Yes.
rate notoriously.
Yeah.
Why is that?
So I was taught that in uni, but you're not really taught why. And I've kind of looked into it, and I think it comes from how stressful a job it is. First of all, it's a job where there's not a lot of room for error. You're working in a very small space, someone's mouth. Patient expectations are really high. And you're in a room the whole time with one other person, your nurse. So it's not
Right,
like an office where you're sitting chatting all day, like things as well. You do talk to patients, but you're working at the same time. So I think it comes from how stressful a job it is. There's always a risk you get sued as well, which is kind of coming in now. It's just that culture now. But also the type of people that are dentists, we're people pleasers. We really don't like criticism, rejection, struggle with. And I think that stems from there's probably a lot of undiagnosed ADHD and autism in the profession, because to get into dentistry, you have to get, well, when I was there, you had to get 5 A's, like 5 A's in one sitting. There's people that are academically very, very smart. But then you'll notice sometimes you go to like the doctors and they're like, they can barely hold a conversation with me. So it's like socially they're kind of falling back a little bit. So I think it's a profession just like the same with medicine, vets, law. They're very, very high achievers, but they might not socially be comfortable to like perform every single day. And that's what it's like. You know, you can go in having the worst day ever as a dentist in like your personal life, and you're coming in the next day like, hi, how are you? How's the weather? The weather's nice today. Putting on a show to people. There's no break from it. You're constantly dealing with people. It's a very people-centred profession, but I am a people's person, and there's definitely elements I miss working part of a team, feeling like I've achieved something and genuinely making a positive change in someone's life, whether it's getting them out of pain or giving them a bit of confidence. But I used to work in a dental practice, and that's a self-employed role. So your dentist, you go to a checkup, that's they're self-employed. And for being a single mum, I was like, no, like I can't know what I'm going to get paid every month. If I go on holiday, I won't get paid. Like I don't really want that. So it was actually around the time of Alan's anniversary, I went for an interview at a hospital, and that's basically a community dentist. So it's dentists that are treating people with autism, special needs, prisons. So it's an NHS service. So I'm moving from being in practice to being a salaried position. I've never done it before, but I just think the timing of it, like I was offered it a few days before Alan's third anniversary. I was just like, maybe it was meant to be, but it's nerve-wracking. But I'm really nervous because I mean it was 4 years I've not picked up a drill, and I'm going to be like, oh my goodness. But I think hopefully it shows my kids as well that you can get back on your feet again. I did think about teaching, I'm not going to lie, but every single person I've spoken to as a teacher was like, don't
I
Don't they let you finish? They let you finish
Teachers
it.
feel like that at the moment. I think it's a hard place
Yeah.
to be teaching.
Absolutely is. So, I can go back and try it and see how it goes, and that's it. If it works out, it works out. But if it doesn't, it doesn't. But I just think it'd be nice to just, I think you need to make your life a bit bigger to try and almost get through the grief as well, and being around people, having work colleagues again, because obviously like I love creating content, but it's lonely because you're filming yourself. You know it is definitely being around colleagues that I think will really benefit me, and being in almost like the real world again, definitely. And it's just obviously it's like the cost of living is through the roof, and not just for a solo mum, but couples feel it as well. So I think just like being long term, like in a job's probably in employment is definitely the way forward as well. I want to give my kids the best life and holidays and things. So yeah, definitely. But I know that I can raise a lot of awareness with dentistry as well. So that's another reason too, like being able to talk to young dentists and people in training. So yeah, I'm like hopefully doing more of that too.
Yeah, so you were you were talking to some dental students recently.
Yeah, so that's them in their first year, so they're doing their training year. So it was lovely going to speak to them. That was the first time I'd ever like spoken like about what had happened to me, and then obviously just like mental health awareness as well. And they've invited me back next month, and I'm actually going to speak to the VT trainers. So this is all the dentists that are training the young dentists. There's 40 of them. And I'm just like, oh my goodness. But the man that trained me, he's going to be there as well. So that's very nerve-wracking, very full circle. So yeah, so it'll be nice being back, and it'll make me like quite be positive about the profession again, because you don't want to be, it's doom and gloom. Every single job is stressful. It's just kind of like making sure you're looking after your mental health as well. Definitely, that's it. Yeah,
which you're going to be so aware of.
Hopefully, yeah.
And I'm sure that picking up a drill is the same as riding a bike.
Hopefully, like find out about that. Definitely, hopefully. You would not be my first patient, that's for sure. No.
I think so many women at this stage in their life, they go through a bit of a career change, and they go through a bit of an identity shift, and they're coming to this stage, their kids are in school, or they're getting to that stage in their life, and they're looking to change something. They're looking to start a business or change their career or do something different. So this is the opportunity for you to go and take that by the horns and start your new life. Do you feel positive about that change?
I think it's a big change, and I was upset about handing my notice into my old job too, but you could end up in the position where someone comes in, that I was pregnant at the time I left, and they could be like, oh, how are you, how's your maternity leave, like, and then you have to tell the story, what happened and things again. But it's difficult. I think a change will do good, like just a new environment, new surroundings. But it is always sad to leave my old job as well, because I really liked working there, and I didn't have an easy time in dentistry, and I thought I finally found a practice that I could, settle at and things. But they were so supportive, and it's just, I think the change will do me the world of good, definitely. Yeah, because you're right, you change as a person, you're not the same person you are. So I think that's why so many women do get into like business, and I wish I really had like a side hustle as well, but I didn't have anything.
Well, I'm sure you could create one. I can help you create one if you want to create one, Lisa. You've got so much to offer the world.
Oh, thank you.
Do you see yourself continuing to do the Widow Diaries content creation alongside your job?
Yeah, I actually think that it'll maybe help me in a way, because that's like a whole new like era of being a working mum, being a working solo mum, because a lot of people message me that are widows and they were stay-at-home mums, so they're like, I don't know what to do now, I don't know if I can work, I don't have any skills. But it's like, no, you can get skills in later in life, that's absolutely fine, and from your life experience you'll have skills as well. It's never too late to change career, get back into a career. I think like any kind of education and training is good, but I think I will do it alongside it, definitely. And I'm finishing off editing my book as well, so I'm hoping to maybe write a few more as well, fingers crossed. I would love to one day write a non-fiction one about, how to actually get through a suicide loss, but at this stage I feel I'm still very much going through it, so I think that's a book for a few years time, definitely. But yeah, I really kind of helped like my grief just writing and creating fiction, so hopefully that'll be coming out soon.
What's your fiction book about?
Basically, it's a fiction book. It's called Grieving and Ghosting, and it's about a young widow who lost her husband to suicide, same as me, trying to get back into the world of dating again, and it's just an absolute disaster. Like, that's it. Because I think, see, if I said, I've wrote a fiction book about suicide, people might be quite hesitant to read that, but dating is so relatable. It's something that everybody has to go through. That's it. So I think it is, and it's completely changed to like the way it was like when I met Alan, like when I was 19. I know, definitely.
Of course. Is that a scene you're in at the moment?
What one, sorry?
The dating.
Dating, no, I've not been on a date in a long time. Like, you know, I think at the start, like, I was very scared to be alone. So I think I really did want to meet somebody. And you did force yourself to go on the dating apps, go on dates and things. But for me now, I feel that, like, see, if I meet somebody, great. But if I don't, then that's okay too. Like, I'm really lucky to have love. I've got kids, so I don't need to worry about, oh, I'm going to have children or not, the way some women do. But what I would say to people, if they are, like, wanting to have kids, then I know widows that they've actually went on to be solo mums just through IVF. So I think that's a really big thing, and I would never think to do that, but I think it's actually incredible because I'm like, well, I'm a solo mum, so you can do it too if you want to be a mum.
Absolutely.
Because it's hard to meet somebody now, it really is, and I think the time you spend on apps and dates, I could be doing something better, but I do hope to find love one day, but just not in the way like apps and things. Honestly, it's just,
you've got better things to be doing with your time.
Absolutely, definitely.
Receiving those kind of pics on apps, honestly, it's a whole other world, isn't it?
It's a whole other world, and all my friends are married, so there's very, very few that can relate to it, and I think they think, oh, just download an app, and I'm like, you have no idea what it's like, honestly.
Bring back in-person dates, I say.
But it's hard because I don't think anybody really meets in person, and obviously me being a stay-at-home mum, you know, it's difficult. I'm not meeting people, like new people day to day. I'm just at home with the kids, definitely.
Yeah. It's a conversation that is an important one.
Yes.
I actually was talking to Vary, who did an episode with us. Vary, who had experienced domestic abuse. And I know that you're kind of online friends with her, and she was talking about that world of dating after abuse or dating after being widowed. It's a whole conversation.
Absolutely.
That a lot of people are actually struggling with and would love to get into, but are so nervous to do that.
I find it's going through a suicide loss and obviously going through domestic abuse as well, you're leaving, you're entering being single, being absolutely traumatised. And when you're traumatised, used to trauma, I think then you think that, oh, this guy, you know, they're like ghosting you, or you don't know if they like you or not, or they're messing you about. You end up thinking that's normal because your brain is used to trauma. And also, like, I felt a really big rejection after my husband's suicide loss, and I think people that maybe were like left for somebody else, like divorced, then they could feel that as well. So you end up almost like not settling, but just like thinking that that's what you deserve and that's it. And I it's really difficult. I think you need to go through a lot of counselling and get your head straight first before entering dating, because it can be an absolute disaster. The stories people have told me, like widows and things going through it, and it adds to another layer of grief as well if something doesn't work out. Oh, definitely. So it's a whole other thing. But
Well, I'm going to buy that book because it sounds brilliant. Tell me the title again.
It's The Widow Diaries, Grieving and Ghosted. So that's
Grieving
the first
and
one,
Ghosted.
hopefully. Thank you.
Brilliant. So to wrap up, Lisa, what would your advice be to anyone who's in the situation that you were 3 years ago and who's listened to this thinking how, you know, they're not expecting anything to happen, but they're thinking, what if? What would your advice be to someone who is, they're married, they've got a husband, they've got kids, and they just don't see anything coming? Is there any changes that you would advise that they put in place in their life?
Changes from their spouse? Changes
for the way that they are as a spouse, or to things to be aware of? So Alan didn't really open up about his feelings that much, to be honest. He never really seemed like upset at any points, and you know, I've always think back, like, why did I not ask him how he was doing, like, actually, and really make sure, like, I knew, like, not just, oh, how are you, but actually, like, no, seriously, like, how are you doing? Any kind of changes in behaviour, people say, like, other people I've spoken to, like, becoming a bit more, like, I don't know, frustrated, like, losing it a bit more easier. Also withdrawing as well a little bit from like friendships or hobbies. That's like a kind of big sign that other people have said. Other people have said that they'll maybe sell things as well, like get rid of belongings as well is a big thing. Really?
But just being more aware, and also you don't want to be in like high alert all the time, like if you're worried about somebody, because that's no way to live a life either, just constantly worrying like, oh, are they going to do this, are they going to do that? I think as well, just being aware that it could happen to anyone, and as long as you're there and supportive, but you can also like read somebody's mind as well. So
Yeah.
if you end up in the same position as me, then you can't blame yourself because
Of
you're not a
course.
mind reader. And it's sad, but it like happens definitely. And it's just as long as you have like things in place, like obviously like life insurance a big thing, like death and service as well, and just making sure for both of you as well,
Yeah.
because I never thought this would happen to me like at 31, and you have a whole life to live ahead of you, but going through grief and worrying financially, that's just a whole other level as well about how you're going to like feed your kids. So making sure things are in place and just being there, offering support. And I always say, like, somebody messages me and say, you know, I'm worried about my friend, I would actually always say, well, contact their parents, because you need to have other people involved as well. Like, and I wouldn't be like feel bad about contacting other people close to them and just say, like, I'm worried about them, can you keep an eye on them as well, and just encouraging them to get help. But they need to help themselves. That's the thing as well. But all you can do is
Because
encourage.
worst case scenario, you look like a helicopter pal, but you'd rather that. You would
Absolutely.
rather that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And like you say, they need to help themselves.
Uh-huh.
And maybe someone listening to this is that person. So what help is available to someone considering suicide or struggling with their mental health?
The main thing is telling anybody, and then your first protocol probably would be phoning the GP. It's not just like, you know, going to a group, because I used to say, oh, see, if I'd known about these men's mental health group, I would have sent Alan to that. And I was like, I was almost like kicking myself, like, why did I not do that? But I didn't suspect he was struggling. But if you knew, you would have sent him to like Andy's Man Club, Men Matters, Men Wishes. There's so many men's groups. But like, it's a combination, it's a whole thing between sometimes medication, counselling, and just the support as well, and making sure they've got like time off work as well to get the support too, because sometimes people will work and it's almost to like escape how they're feeling, but then distraction, but then sometimes it can just add to like how overwhelmed they are as well. Definitely. Yeah. But the main thing is just speaking up and asking for help, and I think joining the groups like Andy's Man Club, there's one in Glasgow, Men Matter, Men Wishes, you'll meet other men that are in the same situation as you or have been in the same situation as you, and you'll see they felt the way I felt, they're still here, there's always hope, and you can always get through it. And people that are still alive today that have felt suicidal, they're proof of that, and it's so important that they speak up as well to like give others hope. Definitely.
Absolutely, as you have done. So we'll make sure that all of these groups and you know, lines and things that you've mentioned are in the show notes so that people can access them. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for sharing so vulnerably. Thank you for putting yourself out there. It's not easy to share your whole life. And every time you have a conversation about this, you're taking yourself back to those moments. And I don't take that lightly. I feel so privileged that you've had this conversation with me and with the person listening to this, because you are making such a big difference every day.
Oh, thank you
in people's lives.
so much.
So
thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Such a pleasure. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of She Can. If you loved what you heard, please go on and like and subscribe on your podcast platform. It means the world to me and means a big difference for the podcast. And if you'd like to hear more about my coaching services, you can go to megmclean.co.uk. You can also download a free future self visualisation at megmclean.co.uk/she can. See you soon.